Hi and welcome to the second video. In this video we're going to be introducing some new features including JavaScript, gauges, serial and analog joins to make the GUI a little richer and more interesting. So let's have a look at what that will look like. First off, we can see our RF switch from the previous GUI working as expected. We can also see one-wire temperatures sensors that will provide real-time temperatures. We've got buttons for the lights, but they won't be doing anything in this GUI. That'll be in the next tutorial. But we will be able to see sliders and the light power go up and down, as well as a indicator for the light turning on and off. You might see the power lags a little bit, but that's simply due to the update rate of my Open Energy Monitor system. You also include a DomotiGa icon that will show the state of connection to the DomotiGa system, as well as allow us to request an update of all of the states from DomotiGa. So let's get into it. Firstly, I just want to correct an error I made in the last video. When defining the system connecting to DomotiGa, not only do you need to set the IP address and the port, you also need to set the end of message to /x03. This is the hex 03 code that will be sent by DomotiGa at the end of each message. In this case, it'll be something like your device ID underscore value, the value number, value 1, equals, and the value that it's sending. That is a complete message and it will be terminated by x03. So it's very important that you set that field. Okay, so on with this video. So here's our GUI from tutorial 1. As I mentioned in the previous tutorial, the focus of these tutorials is to demonstrate how you can integrate DomotiGa with iViewer and not to give a detailed explanation of how you use GUI Designer. That information is available from the CommandFusion guys on their wiki and also through a series of tutorials. So what I'm going to do now is fast forward through designing this interface and put all of the assets onto the screen, and if you need to you can slow down the video and see what I'm doing, but we'll come back and talk about how we then update these fields and icons that I'm going to be putting on the screen so as that they stay in sync with DomotiGa, and also so that we can use some of the buttons here to control DomotiGa. So back in a moment.
So that's the layout of the GUI done, but of course none of these items, with the exception of this switch state which we defined in GUI 1, has any feedback associated with it, so it won't update. But first, what we do before we assign feedback to things is we're going to give those things that we're going to change a join number. There's two ways you can do that. You can open it up and type in the serial join number for each item, or you can use the little tools up here. So these guys are text fields, and I want to update those. They're called serial joins in iViewer. So let's update starting from 1, and we can just use this little wizard tool, and wherever I click will be 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5. Let's do the same for the digital. Start that at 1, digital 1, digital 2, and then analog. This sliders and gauges are analog items. They go between 0 and 65,000 and a bit. So let's set that to 1. Done. So now we've assigned joins to all of the items on the GUI. We need to add the feedback rules, just as we did in tutorial 1, so that all of these temperature and watt and light indicators will update. So let's start by copying the existing one and modify that. We'll do the temperature ones first. Call them anything you want. My device in DomotiGa for the temperature sensor in the bedroom is 111 value 1, and we'll add a new setting here. Data coming in that's matched by a regular expression. It might sound a little strange, but it's an analog data that's matched by this regular expression, and it's just essentially stored internal to DomotiGa as a float, because we've got a long number here, not a simple 1 and 0. So in this case we select analog, and that'll give our decimal number 20.35681 from the one wire sensor. And we're storing it to a serial join, a text join, and the join number is 1. The transform that we're going to use is this formula, value and to 1 decimal point, with the formulas are available on the CommandFusion wiki, so you can find out more about mathematical formulas on the wiki. And let's put a little degrees C symbol at the end. All done. So let's have a look at that again, and yes, that's all correct. So save that, and we'll do the same thing for the other temperature sensors. Okay, so those are the temperature settings done. Let's now do the same for the total power, except in this case we're also going to be updating the gauge. So let's just copy the last one we've created, paste a new one, edit that, we'll call that power. Regex, we're using device 72 value 1 for total power. Get rid of that, and we'll add a new one. So in this case, as I mentioned, we need 2 groups. So we're going to put the regex value or outcome of the regex into 2 places. One into this text
field, and 1 to set the slider. Let's do the slider first. So again, incoming data is in analog format, but we're also setting an analog slider. The join value of this slider is 2. The minimum value is 0, and let's set the maximum value at, say, 5,000 watts. Great. And we'll add another group, and this time we're setting this serial value. So incoming data is analog format, but we're setting a serial format, and the join number is 4. We want to transform it again so it looks pretty. So let's do double curly brackets, value, and then a space and W. Okay, so that's now those two set. Let's copy that and do the same for light power. So for me, my lights in DomotiGa are on device 70, value field 3. The target this time for the gauge, the analog value, is 3. And for the serial join, the text value is 5. It's worthwhile checking that they are all correct, because it's very easy to get the join values mixed up and you get all sorts of strange displays. So the last one we're going to set is our light icon, which will glow on or off according to whether my study light is on or off. And the slider here will also move up and down according to the dim level of the light. So I'm using a dimmer here, which is adds a little bit of complexity, but essentially dimmers, my dimmer gives a value of 0 when it's off, and a value from 1 to 100 when it's on. So let's set up a regular expression rule that caters for that. Copy that. And let's edit the regular expression. Call it light. My light is 41, device 41, value 1. And let's delete the existing rules in there and add a new one. So the first one we're going to do is to set this globe. So incoming will be an analog, but outgoing we want it to set a digital value of 0 or 1. To do that, we're going to have to use a transform. And the maths functions, as I mentioned, are available on the CommandFusion wiki site. In this case, we're going to use an if statement that says if the incoming value is greater than 1, set the digital join to 1, otherwise set it to 0. And that will mean that if our dimmer is on at any value above 0, that will set the digital join to 1 and make this globe light up. So let's just check that we've got the right join value. That should be digital join value 2. Great. Now we need to add another group for the slider, and in this case our slider is, let's go incoming data is analog, outgoing data is also analog because it's a slider, and our join value is 1, so all of that's correct. The only thing we need to change is the minimum and maximum. So as I mentioned, the minimum value I can get is 0, the maximum value is 100, and that will scale this slider accordingly. And done. So that's a fully functional GUI at the moment, but unfortunately the way the GUI is at the moment, it needs to wait until status updates come from DomotiGa. What I really want is when the GUI is launched, or when I ask it to, it goes and asks DomotiGa to send it the current state of all devices. That way, when we launch the GUI, it'll have the current state displayed for all devices immediately. To do that, we're going to have to do some JavaScript. So let's go to the wiki for DomotiGa CommandFusion iViewer interface and scroll down to example CF JavaScript and interfaces, where you'll find this code. This is some basic JavaScript code that will do a couple of things. One, when it notices a connection with DomotiGa, our DomotiGa system, it'll call a routine that will request from DomotiGa it to send the current status of all devices. The other thing it'll do is it'll update the digital join value that's specified here, in our case digital join 1, with the current status of the connection with DomotiGa. So 1 if it's connected with DomotiGa, and 0 if it's not connected with DomotiGa, as well as logging some information in the debug log. We've also got a function here called disconnect reconnect, which will, when called, disconnect the session with DomotiGa and then reconnect it, which will effectively trigger this on DomotiGa system connection status change and request an update of all of the current device statuses. So it's quite a handy little function to have. To use that, let's copy it, and we need to create a file in our folder that's for our GUI. In this case it's in tutorial 2, and let's just create a new document and we'll call that main.js. We'll edit that and paste in the JavaScript that we copied from the wiki. Now if you've called your system, DomotiGa system in GUI Designer, something other than, so this name here, something other than DomotiGa, you'll need to change this text here. And also if your digital join that you're using as your indicator of whether or not you're connected to DomotiGa is something other than 1, you'll need to change this value here. Other than that, the routine should work as it is. So we'll just save that and close it. Now in DomotiGa we can open up our script manager and add the JavaScript that we just created, main.js. Now that script will run and load with, now that script will load with our GUI onto our iPad or Android device and run effectively as soon as iViewer is initiated, and it will then request from DomotiGa an update for all of the active devices and refresh our GUI. It will also set this image to colored icon if it's connected to the DomotiGa system. And if we need to disconnect and reconnect for any reason, then we can just click this DomotiGa icon and it will disconnect, reconnect and request a refresh of all of the items on our GUI. So now that we've got that done, let's save it and fire up the upload service and see how it runs on our iPad. Well, it was almost perfect, except I forgot to change the range for this gauge. It's currently set to 5,000 and should in fact be 500. Done. And then there's just one more thing I forgot to do, is define an action for when we click this DomotiGa button. So under actions, you'll see there's an opportunity to run some JavaScript here. So the JavaScript that we want to call, the routine, is the one that's defined here in our main.js, and it's this disconnect reconnect system. That's the function that we want to call, and you can see it's got a parameter that it needs to receive, which is the system name, in my case DomotiGa. So let's go back into this action and we just paste the function name in there and then give it the name of the DomotiGa system as defined in our system manager, which is, in my case, DomotiGa. Okay, so now we are all done. Let's run the upload service and let's see what that looks like on our iPad. Okay, and here's my iPad. We'll just load the system. As you can see, the statuses update immediately as it loads. It's hard to see, but there's our temperatures there. The light is lit. The slider is set to the current value. Now, and if you press this, it will reload all of those values immediately in case Domotica went offline or you couldn't connect for some reason. So I'll just turn the lights off and you'll see the slider go down, the indicator go off, turn them on again, and there you go, all done. So thanks for watching. It was a bit of a longer video today, but hopefully you're starting to see how easy it is to create a dashboard, a GUI, in GUI Designer and deploy that to your iPad in iViewer, and how easy it is to integrate those with DomotiGa. In the next video, we're going to deploy some JavaScript on those buttons to turn the lights on and off, and then combine those buttons into a single stateful button. Feel free to ask any questions that you have over at the DomotiGa and CommandFusion forums, and it'd be great to see some posts about the GUIs you guys are making.